Okay. So another week where we have to do a live stream to get caught up on absolutely everything we've missed from both recruiting to college football recap. And this week, because things are being done a little bit different, usually I stream Mondays around 5:30 Central Time, moved it to Wednesday this week. We're going to not only recap what happened last week, but we're also going to do a brief preview of the week to come because there are some interesting games that I would like to talk about with some implications that I think will be big. Aside from that, we're also going to be talking about some Heisman conversation, and this isn't going to be a very long live stream. It'll be around 30 minutes, so it's going to be a good time. If y'all have anything you'd like to say, as always, you already know, comment down below, and we're just going to have a good time. But I wanted to start off with some of the highlights from last week, week 7 of college football, because once again, we are not getting shortchanged this week in college football. This year has been unbelievable. Jace, what's up, my man? Glad to have you in here. Roberto, glad to have you in here. Hope y'all enjoy. Hope y'all are having a good day. Let me know what game y'all were most interested in last weekend, and we'll talk about it. But I mean, undoubtedly, you already know if we're going to do this, we have got to start with Purdue, Iowa. Iowa being the number 2 team in the country. And if you remember, I had just done a video a few days before saying how the Big Ten was so interesting because of how many teams were ranked within the top 10. And that right there made it so intriguing to me, at least, because that meant that a lot of things were going to take care of themselves within that conference. They were going to cause a monumental shift within the top 10. And we've seen that, right? Like already with just that one loss, we've seen this monumental shift and what could be an even bigger shift on the back end, right? What does this mean for the Big Ten championship? If Iowa continues to win out, they'll be good, but that win inevitably isn't going to look as good for whoever faces them on the other side than if Iowa was undefeated. So I'm interested in y'all's opinion on the Iowa situation because we already knew they had a good defense. Their offense was lackluster, though. I mean, Purdue is one of those teams where I really don't think you want to be ranked in the top 5 and face them. I mean, they just have this ability to upset teams when they shouldn't be. It's just one of those things where I don't know of another. Can y'all think of another team? I mean, there are certainly other teams like Boise has a history of just ruining someone's day. BYU will ruin someone's day, but God, Purdue a few years ago with that Ohio State victory, and then now with this Iowa victory, absolutely shaping the landscape of college football, and that's what you love to see. Oh yeah, we're going to talk about Caleb Williams. We're going to talk about that whole situation. Chris, my man, hope the office is treating you well. Good to have you in here. If you want a link, you already know. You just let me know. We'll get you in here. We'll talk some. It's going to be a shorter live stream, but you already know you're always welcome, my man. Isaiah, appreciate you, my man. Appreciate the $1.99. Thank you so much for the donation. Roll Tide as always. We got a good recruiting week. Could become even better as the week goes on. We're going to talk about that. Absolutely. But for sure, I mean, Iowa is one of those teams right now we have to watch going forward because they are going to matter when it comes time for the Big Ten championship, right? That's just how it is. UCF is a team that got lambasted by Cincinnati, and that is going to affect things because now Cincinnati is a top 4 team. Now, there's a huge debate online as to whether or not Cincinnati is a playoff caliber team. They're a fun story. They're a good story. They're a good team. Luke Fickell is a great coach, but I don't know. Like it's very hard to gauge right now based on who they've played, even though they've been exciting and impressive the whole time. I think it highlights the need for a playoff expansion or at least a different way to utilize these metrics that we have. Yeah, we're going to talk about OU's defense because, I mean, there's some things there that, you know, I wouldn't worry about, but there are some things that can clean up. No doubt about it. But let's go ahead and talk about that because OU had a big game against TCU. And the interesting thing about this is if y'all go back and remember, when I was talking about Oklahoma against TCU, one of the most sacrilegious things that come to my mind is that a TCU defense was ranked outside the top 75. A TCU defense was ranked outside the top 90. Heck, a TCU defense was ranked at number 100. Now, that is not good, right? To have a number 100 ranked defense, but the TCU defense has been even more odd than that, right? Because when I say a defense is number 100 overall in total defense, the first thing that's going to come to your mind is, well, this is just a terrible defense. And they're certainly not very good. They are abysmal against the run. Not very good at all against the run. If you look, SMU really hurt them bad with the run. Texas hurt them bad with the run. Oklahoma hurt them bad with the run. It's just what's been happening. But they've been effective in getting after quarterbacks, or at least getting them out of their rhythm, right? Mordecai had a good day for SMU. I believe it was 245 yards off the top of my head. If anybody knows, check me on that. He had a decent day. Casey Thompson struggled against TCU. Now, Texas routed them and ended up pulling up a good victory. Bijan had an incredible day. But I was very interested in this TCU-OU matchup for that reason. Now, there wasn't a time where I really thought that, okay, TCU has the ability to upset OU. That was never an indication, a thought in my mind, right? Not when you look at the stylistic matchup of this game and what this game presents. Because y'all know me by this point, right? Like, I'm very into the nuance of how these games happen, the whys, why things will happen the way they will. TCU has a good rushing attack. Their pass offense has been a little bit all over the place, but Zach Evans has really been coming on strong. Ultimately, he didn't play, but I don't know how much it would have mattered. And the reason I say that is because even though when you look at the score, TCU managed to get 31 points, that's because OU's secondary right now is not playing great, but there's a reason for that, right? Like, they have a lot of injuries within the secondary, a lot of guys needing to come back, and then new faces. So there is a reason for the down play right now, but that's why I never really thought this game was super out of hand at any point, right? Even going into it, I just thought, especially with Caleb Williams at the helm, when you look at what's been plaguing Oklahoma, right? It was the inability to establish a running game, because Oklahoma's offense under Lincoln Riley historically needs that rushing attack. When you have that rushing attack, it allows for the downfield passing to open up. At the point throughout the season where they didn't have that rushing attack, defenses were keying in. They didn't have the ability to respect the run. Defenses just weren't scared of Oklahoma's run, and that's why you saw the times that Spencer would try for a big play, it might not have been there because there were so many defenders keyed in. Defenders were just sitting there saying, okay, well, we don't think you can beat us with the run, so we're definitely not going to let you beat us over top. That's why the only thing that was available for such a long portion, in the early portion of the season, at least for the Oklahoma Sooners, was everything underneath. And that's why I always brought up that first interception that was thrown by Spencer, because I thought that was very indicative, because it was how the defenses were playing Oklahoma throughout the entirety of the early stretch. That's not like it was going to be a one-off. Once you saw that the rushing attack wasn't where you maybe wanted it to be early, no doubt about it, not having the scholarship running backs, the offensive line gelling, there are reasons for why things happened the way they did. But the simple truth is that was the matter of the fact at the time. You didn't have the running game the way you would have liked. But when the running game came about against Kansas State and then really came strong against the Texas Longhorns, man, I started to think like, okay, well, this already is a recipe for Oklahoma's offense to become more successful. But then you put that in conjecture with a mobile quarterback, and my question was really, how is TCU going to go about starting this? Yes, they've been able to get after quarterbacks. This is true. This is true. But how are they going to be able to stop this quarterback in particular, who can do a power run type style if need be, but is also making the downfield passes? Right? It's one thing to make a defense respect you. That's half the battle. It's another thing to capitalize on the respect gained. And that's something Caleb has been able to do, right? Through the early portions. It's still early. It's still early. He still has to play some defenses that are now going to have more film on him. But what we cannot deny is that he has capitalized on the opportunity given as well as anybody could. And he's been very exciting, and the team is gelling with him. It's been a lot of fun to see. I do feel for Spencer at a certain level, because the easy answer, and this is something that Indy Sooner and we were texting back and forth the other night talking about, right? That at a certain level, I do feel for Spencer, because the easy answer to this question of whose fault was it is just to pile all the blame on Rattler. That's the easy answer. And at some level, I'm not saying Spencer is absolved from any blame. That's not at all it. But there were other reasons for why Oklahoma was experiencing some of the growing pains. And it's just the simplest answer I can give is that Spencer was not the stylistic quarterback needed for the growing pains Oklahoma was having. Now, Oklahoma has continued to evolve. They're continuing to get better. That's only natural. That's only natural. But that was kind of a roundabout thing. And it made me feel kind of bad for Spencer because he's not absolved. And y'all know I've questioned Spencer's decision-making. I've questioned his mechanics this year. I've questioned a few times. But this situation was almost the perfect storm. It was almost the perfect storm. So it's been really interesting to see, for maybe not a positive way, but it's been interesting. Can we talk about how good Caleb looks? I know it's early, but he could open up a lot for Oklahoma. So look, Oklahoma right now, there are things to fix on the defensive side of the ball. And in no way, this is going to almost be a hot take, and I don't mean for it to be a hot take. And I think y'all know me well enough at this point. If you let me explain kind of my logic, you'll get where I'm looking at this from. So I needed to lead with that. Right now, the only thing that kind of concerns me with Oklahoma is, one, as great as Caleb's been, he's still a true freshman. Right. And look, I'm an Alabama fan. Bryce Young has been sensational, and y'all have heard me sing his praises. He's still a first-year starter. He's been great. He's still a first-year starter. Caleb's a true freshman. He didn't have the ability to at least be in a college program last year the way Bryce did, right? But he's got all the ability, and he's got Lincoln Riley. And he's got a lot of weapons. So I don't worry about the offense. The only thing I look at right now with Oklahoma is I look at Oklahoma's secondary and I think to myself, okay, well, this is a lot of the same problems I saw out of Ohio State's defense down the stretch last year, where their secondary was having a lot of trouble. Their front was decent. Their front was able to get stuff done. And decent is probably an understatement when you look at the names they had. But come time for those big games, their secondary was really getting hurt. So if they can get guys healthy, and like I said at the beginning, I understand there are guys hurt, there are players out, and I am not saying that in a competitive environment, they would just get embarrassed like Ohio State secondary did last night. But I think you can, or last night in the national championship, but I think you can get the picture I'm painting, that right now there's a similarity between what we see between what Ohio State's defense was in weak against and what Oklahoma's defense is weak against right now. There's a reason for Oklahoma's because of inexperience, because of injury, but it is absolutely something that at least it's a very positive that you still have so much time to kind of make some answers for this. It's going to be really interesting, right? It's going to be very, very interesting to see because there are playmakers, right? Nick Bonito, I think he's having a great year. Statistically, he's not having the year that he had last year, but that's because he's being asked to do a lot, right? If any of you ever have the opportunity, go back, rewatch an Oklahoma game. And if I could recommend, watch Nebraska, because I loved the way they used Bonito against Nebraska. I thought it was really, really cool. It was just a great game of his to watch. I've watched it a few times, keyed in on Bonito. And I mean, I don't mean to, when you watch the Oklahoma defense, you're drawn to Bonito right now. I mean, the kid is unbelievably good. He's very, very, very good. A lot of fun. If OU gets through Bedlam twice, then hit the playoffs, a better hope for Cincy in the first round. So Cincy's, it's just so interesting with Cincy. What's up, Cameron? Hope you're doing good, my man. Yeah, Bijan has all the talent of a Heisman back. Bijan has all the ability in the world to be able to be a really, really fundamentally sound back. But it's going to be next to impossible for him to get the recognition he deserves on a Heisman scale without his team being of anywhere of consequence, right? It's the sad reality of college football. The Heisman is an award that while we still need to put stock into it, we need to understand, right, some of the things that go along with it. And then think about it in that regard. Because I just feel for a guy like Bijan, where we all watch him, right? No matter if you're an OU fan, if you're an Alabama fan, if you're a Georgia fan, if you're an Ohio, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Goodness gracious, you watch Bijan and that guy's got it, right? I mean, he's just so much fun. Cameron, I'm trying to figure out how to mod you on StreamYard, my man. I'm having a little bit of trouble figuring that out. But that absolutely, you already know you're We're going to get you in as a mod in here. Absolutely. I'm just trying to figure it out on the fly. But the thing with the Heisman we need to remember right now, because I think this is a good thing to bleed us into something I also wanted to talk about, was the Heisman conversation. Right now, we have a very interesting race for the Heisman. Matt Corral currently leads, at least per oddshark.com. Bryce Young is second, then C.J. Stroud, Bijan, Desmond Ridder, Caleb Williams, Kenneth Walker, Kenny Prickett, Travion Henderson, Brian Robinson Jr., David Bell, Blake Corum, Grayson McCall, Drake London. So a lot of interesting things come to, stick out. First and foremost, Caleb Williams above Kenneth Walker III. Kenneth Walker III. For any of you that haven't been watching Michigan State football, that young man is having a year. A ton of fun to watch. Hit the highlight tape of his. Give it a watch. He's having a great year. So for Caleb Williams to come in over him, I think that to me, it might be still a little early, but we also have to remember what I just said. This is a award where they look at it a bit different, and Caleb's a quarterback. Caleb Williams is a quarterback now leading an Oklahoma team that looks inspired. That goes into this, right? That goes into this. That absolutely goes into this. Desmond Ridder is right above Caleb Williams, undefeated Cincinnati, but the Cincinnati conversation is one where we're going to have to continue having that conversation for quite some time. I'm very interested in Cincinnati. Bijan coming in at fourth. Once again, this is per oddshark.com. These odds were updated Monday of this week, so things could have changed. If things have changed, if you have a different line, by all means, drop it down below. We'll have that conversation. Bijan coming in at fourth, a guy that absolutely deserves to go to New York. Bijan deserves to go to New York. I was upset over the summer that Pro Football Focus had left him off their top 50 players in the nation list. They'd listed several running backs over him. I think it was 4 running backs made that list, not one of them named Bijan Robinson. I can't particularly think of 4 running backs that are any more complete than Bijan. So I didn't understand that line of thinking. Now, I do understand why they ultimately did it. It was because of his usage with Tom Herman. He wasn't used very often. So when you looked at his total yards and stuff like that, it was very low. But the thing is that's when you have to use nuance, right? This is exactly the same argument I made last year when Oklahoma had I think the class last year for Oklahoma finished, correct me if I'm wrong, somebody 11th. But when you looked at the average recruit ranking, they were well within the top 10. Right? It's just they took 17, 18 kids relative to everyone else taking 25. So in situations like that, nuance is important. I bring that to your attention because Bijan Robinson last year was averaging, I think, the highest in the nation in yards per carry at like 7.9, 8 yards per carry. His yards after contact were the highest in the nation. He had 3 or 4 very telling stats that were lapping everybody else, and that's where we needed to look because sometimes these stats don't tell the full story, right? That's why I always love the debates and the talk, and I'm very interested from y'all. Who's an analyst guy? Who's a film guy, right? And then there are people who are both. I try and be both. I still have a lot to learn as far as both goes. But I find that the truth lies in the middle, and especially in this regard right here. It can be very hard to apply stats if you don't understand the nuance as to why they are the way they are, and the best way to understand that is through film. So the Heisman is going to be very interesting. I'm, obviously very happy. Bryce Young sitting second. He has had a great year. I mean, Bryce Young is continuing to have a fantastic year. The Alabama offensive line definitely needs to continue improving, especially along the right side. Left side has been fantastic for the Crimson Tide. Evan Neal, Cohen, they've been phenomenal. And the line has gotten better, but that right side definitely needs to be shored up. C.J. Stroud at third. Now, this is something we need to talk about because C.J. Stroud and Ohio State have gotten written off by a lot of people really early, but they've been improving throughout the year. How much? Tough to tell. We're going to see. There's still a lot of quality football to be played in the Big Ten. That's why I said earlier when we were talking about Iowa, a lot of consequential football remains, and it's going to be very telling as to who Ohio State is. But C.J. Stroud, after coming out and struggling throughout the first few games of this year, has been playing really high quality football. And number one right now per oddshark.com for your Heisman betting favorite is Matt Corral of Ole Miss. I think that's, he or Bryce Young, probably not surprising for anybody right now. Lane Kiffin has been doing a phenomenal job. Ole Miss already having a top 10 offense. They were number one when they played Alabama. I'm not sure where they rank now. I wouldn't imagine they were out of the top 5. I mean, Kiffin is Kiffin. He's brilliant when it comes to the offensive side of the ball. And hey, we found out he's pretty good at dodging golf balls being thrown from the stands as well. So multi-talented. Always good to see that. Yeah, Cam, I know I'll be able to do it over YouTube, and I should probably try. I don't know how it will translate to StreamYard, but you already know, man. We'll text each other. We'll get all that figured out. The beard, it ran away, sadly. Yeah. Right now, I think anybody, Cameron, if they want to really go at Georgia, and we're going to talk about Georgia. I have questions about Georgia, but I think Georgia has a lot of answers. And in no way, when I say I have questions about Georgia, am I sitting here saying, hey, y'all, I've cracked the code. I don't know. I just like to pose questions and try and work through them. But anybody facing Georgia, you're going to have to face them at your best strength. You're going to have to. I mean, okay, here's something crazy. I was on this morning looking at total defense stats for the whole of college football. Right now, Georgia's averaging, I believe, 6.5 points per game. Do you know what the number 2 is? 12. Let that sink in, because I know that might not sound crazy, but let that sink in. Georgia is at 1 with 6, and number 2 is 12. That's wild. And look, I've had a lot of people point out, and probably correctly so, that Georgia hasn't played an offense that is really menacing yet. And while that may be true, we also have to give credit where credit is due, right? And this is where, even though Georgia may not have played an offense that we feel is of major consequence, they're still playing Division I college football and not allowing more than 7 points a game. I don't care who you're playing, right? Like, I think no matter who the team is, right? If we took the name Georgia off and inserted Alabama, Colorado, USC, Cal, I don't care who that stat belongs to. If you're playing Division I teams, that's impressive. That's impressive. Now, do they, are we interested in seeing what they look like against a more high-powered offense? Absolutely. There's no question. But to play college football and do what they do, that's impressive. Chris, on the way over, my man, on the way over. 1 second, y'all. Let me get this situated. Let me know what y'all think about Georgia, because I have a lot of people question their defense because they don't feel like they've played. Like I said, I don't think that they've played the greatest of offenses, but at the same time, when I'm looking at this and in the landscape of college football, they're allowing 6 points a game. That's tough. Like, that's really impressive. That's really, really impressive. Offensively, it's going to be very interesting. They have injuries on the offense. Stetson Bennett is there. I don't know what the situation with he and JT Daniels is, when we'll see JT Daniels again, but that's going to be something we have to keep an eye on. That link just got sent over, Chris. Let me catch back up with some of these comments. If OU can slow down the Georgia D line, they have a... Man, it's very tough to say right now. I'm really going to have to go and watch film, but Georgia isn't a good matchup for a few teams. And Oklahoma right now, they're going to have to really shore up. And I know it's getting better, but they're going to have to shore up their offensive line. Caleb is going to continue alleviating pressure off of them. The unit will continue to grow based off of the coach they have, based off of the talent they have. And now that they have Caleb, the running game there, it's going to take pressure off of them. But it would be an intriguing matchup, no doubt about it. But man, that front for Georgia is nasty. Is nasty. Jace's playoff prediction is SEC champ, Big Ten champ, Oklahoma, Cincy, SEC runner-up. I agree. if Bama doesn't have the 2 losses. If Bama wins out, then that's exactly what's going to be. It's going to be Georgia and Bama. Unfortunately, Bama catching that loss to A&M fundamentally shifts things. And now we're going to be put in a situation where the best 4 teams may not have made it, right? Bama got caught sleeping. That's an unfortunate reality of college football. That's why we go and play the games. You can get caught slipping any day, and it shouldn't have been against A&M. No matter if A&M is ranked, unranked, look at the talent on that team. We can all be objective here. That's a very talented team. So to be caught sleeping against A&M was puzzling to me, especially on the road, but it is what it is. So Bama has to win out. I think they have the ability to. I do. But stuff has to improve. Kolsky, or let me know what you think I don't believe, because maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Yeah, 24/7 Sports, there's a lot of movement in that ranks, Cameron. I don't know if you saw, there were some Bama players. I mean, some of them dropped heavy, some of them rose, but there was a lot of surprising movement in the ranks. I haven't really gotten to sit down and see who moved where, who took their place, this, that, and the other. So I'm going to have to do that before I really comment on it. But I know that I looked, and even our stuff, there was a lot of movement. A lot of movement. I don't know if that link sent, Chris. Let me. There we go. Now it's sent over. Look, Georgia's offense hasn't been, bad. This is an offense that has got some talent. Their tight end position is playing at a very high level right now. Burton is a receiver that when he's healthy, when he's a full go, he's very, very talented. Their running backs are hard-nosed, physical backs. They got some guys along the offensive line. I mean, Georgia has got talent, right? I mean, we need to acknowledge that they are a very talented team. And they have ways to affect you, especially if they implement pre-snap motion, because that's been something that's given the Sooners trouble. Whether they're able to do it consistently, I don't know. It's going to be very interesting to see how Monken goes about implementing his offense now that he's getting more guys coming back. But I am very excited to see, especially I'm excited to see how their offense evolves. Let me see. I don't know if they're the worst Power 5 offensive line, 100 yards, but man, it's hard to argue that they're not up there. I feel so bad saying that, but they are. I mean, there's a lot with Texas right now, right? There's a lot with Texas right now. They have a great coaching staff that I really do believe that in the long run can be successful for them, but it's going to take time. And I think some people thought they were further ahead than they were going into this season. And look, I think now reality is setting in, and that doesn't mean that it can't be turned around, but I think we need to have a realistic expectation for what that could look like, and it could take some years. It could take some time. It's only going to be natural. That's just the nature of this game. College football is a fickle, fickle beast. It's a fickle beast. Let me get back caught up. So I haven't heard about Bama not pushing with Barry and Brown anymore. I need to check back into all of that. I know that right now the wide receiver position, Bama has zeroed in on some guys they like, but also the wide receivers Bama has. I mean, Kobe Prentice just rose very heavily for Alabama. If y'all haven't watched Kobe Prentice's tape, please go watch his tape. That young man is really, really talented. He's a really high riser. It's going to be very interesting to see. But there are some wide receivers that Bama has very much well keyed in on that I think they can get. It's just, they'd love to get Barry and Brown. I mean, his speed would be huge. His speed would be huge. Hope you're having a good day. Bama wants Bishop Sycamore, and we would love nothing more than to take on Bishop Sycamore. That would make me just so happy. So happy. Isaiah Mendoza says it correct. He says for Georgia, the questions are secondary and passing offense. Hey, the mailman has been getting it done this far, but I think the thing that gives me pause for Georgia right now, and I want to hear down in the comments, give me a fair or unfair when I say this. Let me know fair or unfair. The thing that scares me about Georgia right now is if they don't have JT Daniels, we saw Stetson Bennett play good football last year and then go take on Bama and not be able to get it done. A year has passed. People grow. Schemes are implemented. This is now a year more with Todd Monken in there. They're going to be getting better. But I've seen this story before. And that's the only area as far as Georgia's concerned where they have questions. And even their questions are light. Their secondary is interesting. Their secondary is really, they're talented. They're inexperienced. Tyke Smith was supposed to be a huge acquisition for this Georgia defense. And it just kills me that he got hurt. Right? It just kills me that he got hurt. That young man coming from West Virginia, following his position coach to Georgia. Georgia's done a great job of identifying position coaches, and Tyke Smith follows his position coach to the Dogs, gets hurt. Tyke Smith was going to be huge because Pro Football Focus graded him, I believe, as the #1 nickel back per last year, with Malachi Moore coming in at #2. Now, the reason that's so big is because when you look at the scheme Georgia runs defensively, that nickel is so key. That nickel is so key. And when they don't have that experience in that nickel position, it gets really tricky. Chris, my man, how you doing?
Hey, man, I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Let me jump in here real quick because while I was driving home, I heard you say something about Georgia that really struck me. I kind of tend to disagree with you. I get that they play D1 football teams, but I really think that at the end of the season, and I mean a regular season, not the postseason, I think Alabama is probably going to beat them by at least 2 touchdowns or more.
Well, I'm not going to argue with the end result of what you said. I think that the juxt of what I'm getting at, though, is, we give teams so much. We'll look at a team such as Arkansas, right? And we'll say, oh, they're playing good defense. And they really are. They really are. And they may have played some more explosive offenses than has Georgia thus far. I really don't think there's an argument against that. I think the way I look at it is I still look at Georgia and I say, look, no matter which offenses you've played, you've still been playing college football. Yeah. And goodness gracious, you've been doing it at a high level. Yeah. Now, do you think that Clemson game is more indicative of who Georgia is, or do you think they've been evolving as the season has gone on? Because I think that's a big question as to why we may feel differently.
Well, I think that they've evolved as who they are, because if you think about it, I mean, come on, confidence is key. Confidence is definitely key for any good defensive unit to go out there and be able to just, they're charismatic. They got guys who love football. They bought into the system. They bought in at an early stage too, earlier than a lot of other teams. But when you look at even the top 10 matchup or top 25 matchup that they just had against Kentucky, teams like those, they're one-dimensional. And in fact, they don't have enough weapons on the outside. They don't have a game plan. I mean, you look at what, me being a OU homer, I will be the first to say, we would have beat Kentucky, but it would have been probably like a Nebraska type game or whatnot. Because if you watch what Kentucky was doing, Kentucky was basically going out there with the same game plan as a West Virginia or a K-State or whatnot. Let's slow the game down and let's try to see if we can work the field and it just didn't work that game. They're one-dimensional. They don't really have guys like that. So when you look at those matchups, you're saying obviously Georgia should win fairly soon. And then even going back to the Arkansas game, okay, take the Texas game away. Take the Texas game away. And even parts of the Texas A&M game away. How explosive is that offense really? I think the one question mark that I have about that team, about the Arkansas team, is this right here. I like KJ Jefferson a lot, but we've talked about it time and time again. I said, whether it's Malik Hornsby or KJ Jefferson, I know that they're good dual threat quarterbacks, but can they shred the field? Can they tear the field up just passing? We still have yet to see an elite passing performance by KJ Jefferson. So if you stop the run game and you force him to pass, I mean, come on now, I mean, it's simple. I mean, it's just like with Texas right now. I'm gonna load the box and I'm gonna make you either put Hudson Card out there or Casey Thompson, and I'm gonna tell them to beat me. I'm not gonna let your run attack be the one that defeats me. But to my point with Georgia, something tells me that I'm not gonna call them a fraud, but I will say I think we should pump the brakes because I think Alabama will definitely have something to say about that.
Oh, I think Alabama, when I look at, because, I've said it once this podcast, you've heard me say it 1,000 times off air when we text, when we call. I'm a big nuance guy, right? Like, and I think that we have matchups that could give Georgia some trouble, right? Specifically, if we start switching some things out in the slot, take advantage of that matchup. But at the same time, our offensive line has got to play with much higher consistency, or else we're not going to be able to take advantage of those matchups. We have the ability, it's coming together, but it is something interesting to see. And to your point, I think you make a really solid point about Arkansas. KJ Jefferson at one point this year was averaging the highest yards per attempt in the SEC. I mean, something like 19 or something yards per attempt was what he was averaging. So it was really an offense based off of lull you to sleep with the play action and then hit you over the top, but not consistency. And so to your point, when you're able to take that running game away, well, now you're taking away a big portion of what makes Arkansas tick. So, look, make no mistake about it. I definitely think that we haven't seen Georgia's defense tested. I think maybe I'm just easily impressed in the sense that, like, man, you're still playing Division I college football teams and holding them to an average of like 6 points a game.
Until somebody beats them, until somebody makes them look human. Okay, I get it. Everybody's on cloud nine about Georgia right now. Okay, I think now this is me going out on a limb. I think the team to give you somewhat of a blueprint on how to attack that Georgia defense is Florida.
I can agree.
I mean, Florida has better athletes than Kentucky on the outside, on the perimeter. But I also think that I don't know what Emory Jones we're going to get that day. But if we get a mix of, or if we get Anthony, is it Anthony what's his last
Anthony
name?
Richardson.
Yeah, if we get him, I really feel like that Florida offense, I feel like Dan Mullen will be able to craft something together that week to really attack that defense. So I think that you could get somewhat of a blueprint there. I mean, those are games that I think we often overlook, are those, what I like to call them are those blueprint games. How do you actually attack this defense? How do you actually neutralize the real weapons on this defense, the best players on that defense? If you watch OU, that's what they've done this entire year. Instead of sitting there saying, okay, we'll man up, we'll do all the rest of this stuff, we'll let Spencer Rattler just tear us apart. No, we're going to set in this soft zone. We know he's not going to run, and we're going to pick him apart. We're going to double Benito. We're going to make that defensive line work, and we're going to challenge these young cornerbacks, these young nickelbacks, these true freshmen that are getting a lot of time out here. We're going to challenge them up and down the field. And also, we're going to slow the game down. So I think when you look at those teams, you say, okay, this team may not beat them, but they can always give a playoff team or somebody like Alabama. Alabama doesn't really need it, but they give them a blueprint of how to actually attack this team to beat them. And I think those are notable games to me that I always look for.
Yeah, and I think the emergence for Alabama in particular of Jamison Williams presents a really, really dangerous weapon. I've said it before, and I'm interested in hearing from some people. Kenneth Sawyer asked, what about Kool-Aid McKinstry? Hey, that young man, his time's coming. His time is coming. When you go back and watch the spring game, just watch how he's approaching the wide receivers, watch his technique. That young man is very advanced for his age. He's going to take over. And look, when you're sponsored by Kool-Aid, you already know your time is coming. You already know your time is coming. You said Bama will push Georgia and maybe even beat them, but the way Georgia's controlled games, I would put money on Georgia to win it all. I can understand that, but like I said, I think that some of the matchups, and maybe I'm being a homer, And look, if I am, I am. But this is the exact reason why I have that behind me and why I let everybody know I am an Alabama fan. So that if I have a take that y'all think is being a homer, we can have a conversation about it. I do think when Alabama's playing their best football, we present matchup nightmares for just about every team in the country, depending on where you look, especially with the two talented tight ends. And that's going to be really tough for Georgia to stop, is those two tight ends Bama has right now.
If you look, Brian Robinson is playing
phenomenal.
great football right now. People are bouncing off of him left and right.
Bill O'Brien just needs to use him.
Yeah. I think that with that running back room, I'm not really sure if I know McClellan's out for a while. Is he out for the season?
For the year.
He's out for the year. So McClellan's done. You guys still have Trey Sanders back there?
Trey Sanders. I'm not sure what the status of Trey Sanders is. He hasn't been getting the touches many thought he would, but I think that might be an indication of just knowing that he's still in the process of healing up. He had a really bad car accident, man.
He's had the short end of the stick with that right there. But I guess my point with it all is just you guys have the same amount of weapons that they do. You guys have the same amount of weapons, and I think an X factor in that game would be somebody like Billingsby. I think you guys can throw it down the field, and Georgia is not going to throw anything at Bryce Young that he hasn't seen this year already. And I think. Yeah,
I completely agree. And Aesthetics says Bryce doesn't play like a Heisman under pressure, and Georgia's going to pressure him. He didn't play well under pressure against A&M, right?
Yeah.
But we saw Mississippi State try and pressure him, and he adjusted much better. This is still a young kid, man. I mean, we've seen an evolution in him just this year. Bryce is that guy. I'll put it like this. When I'm thinking of potential matchup problems for the Crimson Tide, my mind doesn't go to, oh, well, I'm worried about what Bryce Young is going to do in this game.
Yeah.
I'm not worried about Bryce. I'm not.
I think he's going to continue to evolve and get better. And once you see things on film, he's a threat. I think that he's going to be able to see lanes and different things open up. I mean, it's the same going back to your point about Caleb. I get that he's young or whatnot, and I'm not going to compare the high school league that he played in to college, but I am going to say
it's a good high school league.
It's a premier high school league, and they play a national schedule.
3 top 10 national teams his junior year, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So
And I mean, going back to that game against Texas A&M, like I said, you got to give it to Calzada. He just played an incredible game. Against everybody else, I saw a meme today, and they were like,
"Can we get Zach Calzada?" And we already have Zach Calzada at home.
Yeah. Well, they had like it was like Calzada versus Bama, Calzada versus everybody else, so they had memes of Johnny Manziel at different points in his life. I'll leave it there, but they play. You get somebody who plays out their freaking mind, you know. But yeah, that's exactly what Chicken 1515 just said. Make Stetson Bennett beat you. That's what you want to happen, and he's capable of doing that.
He played well.
At this point, I don't really know what is up with JT Daniels. I don't know if they want him to come, because I mean, you got to go with the hot hand. He has more chemistry right now than anybody.
And that's why I said when I started talking about this, I have no idea what's going on, because at a certain point I thought, oh, well, they're just making sure he's going to be healthy down the stretch.
Yeah.
But like you said, now we're approaching the territory of, are you really going to disrupt the entirety of your offense at the mid-year point when you don't need to, right? That's going to be tough. Weston says, say what you want, but OU with Caleb Williams playing well would be a tough matchup for Georgia. I think so. I definitely think they could be, Weston. I'm not trying to come off as dismissive. I do want to see a bit more game film out of Caleb. I think that's only natural. I think that's fair. Yeah. I think that's fair. We have a game and a half of film, but we have a game and a half of very impressive film. Let's get it all understood right now. He's been very good.
The game to kind of give you a deciding factor about that, or as far as how you want to really feel about Caleb, the Baylor game coming off. Coming off of that bye week, coming off the bye week, and then going to Waco. with Dave Aranda, with those blitz packages, those exotic blitz packages that he's going to run. It's gonna be interesting to see how he handles that on the road. I pray to God that game is like at 11 or 2:30, but it's probably going to be a night game. So
Baylor you were 100, and you know what? For everybody in chat, if you didn't see, before the season started, I asked this man sitting right here next to me who his biggest test was for OU. I had mine, he had his. The one we disagreed, he picked Baylor. And I thought Baylor would be better, but I didn't know how much better. And he was 100% right. I picked Iowa State in place of Baylor. They have been a dumpster fire. So kudos to the man right here because he called it.
So I would say Dave Aranda just because of his defensive prowess. You know, he's gonna give Lincoln a lot of different looks. It's gonna be a mind game. I think my mind says, yeah, we should blow them out by 30, but my heart says, yeah, we'll probably end up getting out of that game, probably winning by 10. I would say somewhere 10 plus. But especially if we come out healthy, which we should be healthy by that time. And I think we'll have a lot of our starters and a lot of our twos back. You get what I'm saying? That two, yeah, we'll have a lot of our real twos like Jeremiah Cradell. Nobody's talking about Jeremiah Cradell. If we have Jeremiah Cradell, I'm fine with Broyles playing because that means that Cradell is probably playing a lot as well. And you're able to see Billy Bowman get a lot of he's still gonna get his reps. He's a starter, but still, you get what I'm saying. But
no, I mean, he's young. He's young playing a nickel. I don't think people realize how tough a freshman nickel. That's like Malachi Moore did that for Bama last year. And I was singing his praises all year because I'm like, guys, that's a freshman nickelback. That doesn't happen.
I just think that with OU, their biggest challenge is going to be OU fans in general, but OU in general, they're not scared of going to Stillwater. Stillwater does not scare us. I think that defense is a fraud. Iowa State is going to have to account for his mobility. Now you can't just sit back and just try to, because Iowa State already knows they have to play a zone because they don't have anybody who can stop Mims. Mike Woods is starting to come on as well. We have a lot of weapons out there, and you're starting to see them.
Mike Woods has been great for you.
Yeah. Great. Mike Woods, in my opinion, when I look at wide receivers, I look at their route tree and I look at how they move. He has a great route tree. Like he understands his concepts. He understands exactly where he needs to be, where he wants to be. Just put the ball up and he'll go get it. And plus he's a hard runner as well. Definitely a hard runner. But I do think that if you want to judge, the measuring stick for OU will be that Dave Aranda defense and what he throws at them. I think that going into the Iowa State game, you feel better about it because you say, okay, if you guys want to sit back in that soft zone, we'll eat you up for 6-7 yards of carry. You know, Caleb can run that, but you know you got to deal with Kennedy Brooks. And now the reemergence of Eric Gray. So I'm optimistic about this team. I don't want to get on here and sound like a total homer, but I do agree with the guy who said, yeah, OU could pose a threat, a real true threat to this Georgia team simply because with your defense, granted, our defense does need to play better. We have people out, all the rest of that stuff. But with this defense, when they're healthy, I do believe that they can be one of the top defenses, if not the top defense in the nation.
See, the interesting thing is, and that's something I've talked about before, I don't know if I think that this iteration of Oklahoma's defense could be number one, but I don't know that you have to be.
You don't have to be.
My point, like, I don't think you have to be.
You just have to get off the field and it's not even about takeaways at this point. It's just getting off the damn field. Like, we got to get off the field.
Tackling.
Yeah, tackling. Tackling has been poor these past 2 games, which I think it'll improve, but yeah.
He said it right. Tackling. And look, this is the craziest thing because then Kenneth points this out as well. It's been across the board.
Yeah.
Tackling. When I went back and watched, oh God, what was it? Ole Miss and then Texas A&M. You couldn't believe how many yards were left on the field if people just wrapped up and tackled. Yeah. I mean, we're talking touchdowns. We're talking yards, first downs, a whole lot. Someone said, who was it? I think it was Sean. earlier said something about Trey Sanders transferring.
Yeah.
Look, in the current climate of college football, anything can happen, right? But I don't know. He's been through a lot at Alabama. He's had a great recovery at Alabama. You know, Coach Saban loves him. He's meant a lot to the program, and what internally has been his recovery. So I would love nothing more for him to stay with the Crimson Tide, because I think when he gets healthy, goodness gracious, I mean, God.
No, he showed some flashes. So yeah, no.
So I'm interested in hearing from you on this, because I have my take on it, but I want to hear from you. South on Main and Arts Culture says Caleb Williams for Heisman.
Yeah.
What do you think?
I think it's a tad bit premature, but I do think it's deserved. I think if you look at Caleb Williams has done one thing that Bryce hasn't done. Matt Corral hasn't done. A lot of people haven't done this year. They put up big numbers. They have games on him. Caleb Williams has actually had a Heisman moment. The Texas game, the Texas comeback.
That was his Heisman moment. Yeah.
Yeah, if you think about that, coming in cold as a turkey, and leading OU back down 28-7 and taking over for Spencer in that game, and come back and winning in the way that he did and doing the things that he did, and especially with Kirk Herbstreit just watering at the mouth for him. But he had a Heisman moment, and I don't think that Bryce Thompson or Matt Corral actually have this year. And I think that Bryce Thompson has a few games where he could possibly have it, but you're looking at Matt Corral and saying they're probably going to lose at least one or two more games. I don't really see them. I mean, they're not going to win their conference. They're not even going to win their conference championship, which I don't think that that's a big thing about it, because I know some people say this is for the best player on the best team, which I don't agree with that, because you look at Lamar Jackson, hell, Johnny Manziel. You look at
we can make arguments that some players should have swept the Heisman, right?
Yeah. There's other players that had better seasons than those guys. They just had the eye of approval, and they passed the eye test on several occasions. But I feel like with Caleb, there's no reason why he should, if he continues, when he continues this run that he's on, I believe that he will be in New York this year. Whether he'll win it or not, I don't know, because I think a lot of voters are really old school, and they're not going to want to. It's not that he's a true freshman. I just think it's the fact that he just popped up on the scene. But with the level of success that he's displaying right now, if that continues, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard not to vote for him and give him that Heisman.
So this is how I see it, right? Mm-hmm. He's had a absolutely great start to his campaign. To me, the answer is simple: no. And the reason is because one moment against a defense that doesn't even rank within the top 100 of relevant college football defenses and isn't indicative of a year's worth of success, right? Yeah. Right now, as great as Caleb has played, the simple truth is he hasn't faced a defense that ranks within the top 100 in college football. The top 100. SMU, UNT, no, don't get me. He's been impressive, but that's a fact, right?
Okay.
Go ahead.
I'll be the first to tell you the Texas defense sucks. You know how I feel about Texas. That's for another day.
It's been
you know how I feel about Texas. All right, horns down. Anyways, I had to disagree, because just you're down 28-7. You're down 28-7.
For sure.
I mean, look at that time in the game, that point in the game, this being a big time rivalry.
Didn't we just see that out? Not 28-7, but we just saw Texas give up a lead to an anemic Oklahoma State offense.
That is true. Okay, that is true.
But right, wrong, or indifferent, where does Texas's offense rank?
Oh, Texas is number 9 in the Big 12. That should tell you enough.
But they're outside the top 100, right?
Yeah. No, I get that. But then you look at the TCU defense, and I get it's leaky. It's
outside
leak.
The top 100.
It's a bad leak. I get it.
Yeah.
But you and I both know that Gary Patterson, it's not the defense, it's Gary Patterson. It's how he schemes those guys.
Gary Patterson's brilliant. Patterson's brilliant.
And on top of that, just to keep going, you and I both know that there are guys on that defense still who are going to go in the first or second round, or at least on the second day. We
Sure,
know
but it
that they
takes
got
all 11.
guys.
And it's especially when you look at the nuance of stylistic matchup, right? When you have a defense that's so anemic against the run and then ranks outside the top 100.
Yeah.
I understand. Caleb has been phenomenal. Can he win the Heisman? He has ability. He has the ability to, right? There's no doubt about it. That's not my contention. My contention is are we going to put more onus on one moment, which was unbelievable, and I absolutely concede that, against a team that has now dropped multiple leads and has a defense ranked outside the top 100 for quarterbacks that have been year. I find that hard to give them the nod. Now, next year, I think we're looking at an entirely different conversation. But yeah, I think it's too little too late this year. And he's been great. I don't mean to take away from him. That's not what I'm trying to do. But
check this out. Okay. Alabama looked great against Miami. If we put Miami and Texas out there on the same field, I'm throwing a spoon out there because that's a bum fight. Both of those teams are not good. Okay. Bryce Thompson had his breakout game, hey, I'm here to be a face in college football game. He had that game against Miami. Then they go and play Mercer. Then the next week, now you're on record because you talked about how they struggled at Florida and how they looked in that second half. Okay. He looked like, oh my gosh, he's just going to run away with everything. And then all of a sudden, everybody came back to reality.
But he got a ranked win on the road.
I get it. Then they go play Southern Miss. Then they come back against Ole Miss and they beat the brakes off. He
outduels the #1 quarterback in Heisman betting odds.
That's fine.
No, because these things matter. We cannot leave them out when we're creating a narrative. That wouldn't be a complete narrative.
And then he looked average against Texas A&M, and that defense, I for sure know they may be in the top 100, but they're not in like the top. They couldn't be in the top 50. If they're in the top 50,
they were the #1 defense before they lost. Look it up. Look up college football stats.
Texas A&M
was the #1 defense before they had lost to Colorado, or before they had that game against Colorado. They had regressed, but look it up. I'm not sure where they rank right now, but they'd be within the top 50, no doubt about it.
You and I both know that Texas A&M team is going to finish 8-5. Okay.
Yeah, but that's not indicative of how good your defense is.
They're going to finish.
They don't have an offense that
they're
can
going to finish 8-5. They haven't not passed. In none of their games this year have they even looked remotely good.
Texas A&M right now, they've regressed to number 44. So
okay. And then you go on the road and you beat up on a Mike Leach Mississippi State team who thought they had something, but no magic was coming. So I'm just saying, when you look at the schedule, it's not like Alabama has just been out here busting heads. I get you have some D1 opponents, but come on, the resume is not there.
Okay, but now take the glasses off.
Yeah.
Right? For real. You're an attorney.
Yeah.
You're telling me that as an attorney, you're going to say the resume while also defending a resume that doesn't contain a defense that ranks within the top 105 in college football? That's like saying he shoot him with this gun right here, Your Honor. This is just the gun he purchased. These pictures shot him with, and then he gave to me and said, hey, tell him I shot him with this gun. That's a self-defeating argument. You know yourself that's a self-defeating argument. The logic you've put up instantly falls when you want to use that as a prop, when the argument you're using on the counter side completely collapses but based off that criteria.
So all I have to say now in rebuttal to that is just a simple fact of, hey, we played a game and a half with Caleb as the quarterback. Let's see how the rest of the season plays out.
But that's why I had the original take I had. Caleb has been playing great football, and I'm not trying to take away from him.
Yeah.
I just think that we have Matt Corral, who's already been having a great season. Bryce Young, who's been having – it's so little time to catch up to what they've been able to do.
But at the end of the day, Heisman voters, yes, they will look at the longevity of the season and see who's been doing it for the longest. Neither one of those players that you named, Matt Corral, Bryce Thompson, they have not had a Heisman moment or a moment bigger than that, than what Caleb had against Texas. I'm just sorry. That's just the plain, honest truth. Okay, they may have better seasons, better numbers right now. Okay.
But the Heisman isn't one off of a moment. Now we're completely changing the criteria. So now any given year, I could take the greatest moment in college football and quantify that into a Heisman. Essentially, now I'm telling a player, hey, don't worry about a season, worry about your one moment and then go sit. That's not the criteria.
I get that. Take the year that Kyler Murray won the Heisman.
Yeah, great.
Yeah. Tua Tagovailoa. Oh my gosh, he could not do any wrong. He had several games where he had really good games. All the rest of that. Kyler had better stats. Kyler had different moments throughout that season that you're just like, no, that's the best player in college football.
But when you looked at the end of the year, he had more yards.
And I get it. I get it. You're going at stats. You're looking at stats. You're looking at the overall composition of their work. I get that.
Well, we have to because it's a season.
Yeah, but I think at some point, a lot of voters out there and a lot of fans as well, they will look at stats. You will see a lot of statisticians come out of the woodworks to argue those points. But I think at some point, you just got to take the glasses off, put the pen down, put the pencil down, put the pad down, and just say, damn, that's the best player in college football. He is the most electrifying player right now.
No, certainly he's been electric, but here's my question.
Yeah.
And I think I'm asking because I already know the answer. Would you be saying this if that was a quarterback that didn't play for OU that had played two defenses that are awful?
No. Yes.
Because I feel like I could go pick players that have had phenomenal 1.5 game stretch against defenses that aren't in the top 100, and we're not giving them that same shine.
I'm just talking about the magnitude of the moment.
There's not a bigger moment than the Red River rivalry.
I'm
not arguing that.
If you're okay, so I'll put it like this right here. If Anthony Richardson would have actually played that game against Alabama and would have came back and led the charge and just like Caleb did, and then he went out there against whoever Florida played next and he put on a show, I'd be like, hey, that kid right there, the magnitude, the moment of the game, the height of the game, the emotions, everything that's going. I think you also got to look at stats. You got to look at the longevity of season, all the rest of those things. And I get it. Those odds are definitely stacked high against Caleb. But you got to look at those different moments and just put them out there. I'm not saying that he deserves it. I'm not saying that he's better than Corral or he's been better than Bryce Thompson. But all I'm saying is that, yeah, y'all put your gloves on. All I'm saying is this right here is that Caleb had a moment that was special that is ingrained in a lot of people's heads and will be until the end of this season. So you're going to have to fight that. Okay. You're going to have to fight that.
So yeah, like I said, in no way am I trying to diminish anything Caleb Williams done because he's been just spectacular.
Yeah.
I think I couldn't agree more. I need to see what he's going to do against Oklahoma State, and I need to see what he's going to do against Baylor because those are defenses of consequence. Like I was just looking, and I didn't see a defense that OU's played that's ranked within the top 50 thus far.
So that's all fine. And look, I'm not going to fight with you on that. We can agree to disagree, but I will say this right here: Oklahoma State's defense, fraud.
No, I'm interested in that. That's going to be interesting.
Fraudulent because they do this every single year. Every other year, they'll have a year. They have all these damn super seniors on that team right now. And look, I absolutely detest OSU, but I'm going to put that to the side. OSU does this every year. They go out there and they barely beat all these other teams. Everybody seems like they forgot about the Boise State game. Everybody's quick to bring up Tulane, Nebraska, West Virginia, all those teams against OSU, but it's like we are so infatuated with this Mike Gundy team that we forget about the Boise States, the Tulsas of the world that they struggle with. Hell, they barely beat. And I get Mr. Sanders wasn't playing, but you throw him back there, hell, they might lose that game. They barely beat Missouri State. So you're looking at this Oklahoma State team and you're saying, oh, okay, so I'm supposed to call them elite and this defense is great. They do this every year. Last year they did it. They came to Norman talking about this may be the year where we get them. And we gave those boys a woodshed or a country ASS whooping. I'll keep it PG for your show. But I'm just saying that I'm not buying stock in this OSU defense. I'm not buying stock in that. Who have they played? They haven't played besides Texas with Bijan. If you just run the damn ball when you're down there, I don't know what Casey Thompson was looking at. He threw one bad interception that game. He threw two, but he threw one bad one, and it was the pick six. Like I still to this day, I don't know what he was looking at when he threw that. But you're looking at Texas and saying like that was that was really your game to win. And here's the other thing. I don't know what happens to OSU whenever they're actually down by double-digit touchdowns. Because, and you could say that going against Texas, but look at where Texas is at right now. But if you're telling me that the key to victory for them against the OU team is to run Warren 30+ times, I welcome that.
Because that's not the recipe for y'all.
That's not the recipe. You're gonna have to throw the ball, and you're gonna have to challenge that secondary like somehow. You can't.
I don't think Oklahoma State's gonna beat y'all because I don't think that their offense it goes well against y'all's defense. But I do think that they could present something. Now I do have to say one thing, right? Mm-hmm. Because Travis stated that Bama got lucky that y'all played Georgia in 2018 and lost to them because y'all would have made our defense look like the Oklahoma defense that year. And here's what I'll say, Travis. It's easy to talk from outside the club when you couldn't get in. It's easy to talk from outside the club when you couldn't get in. Look, I get it. Y'all had a good offense, but hey, we matched up well against anybody that year, I feel
was that? Who was he talking about?
He said that OU would have beat Bama had y'all beat Georgia in the playoffs, and that they would have made our defense look like y'all was in the line for the club. You didn't get in the club. No, the club is the Natty. You didn't get in the club. You got accepted into the line of the club. That's where it went. I'm not trying to be harsh, but that's what it is.
Travis trying to get into the club with a fake ID.
Hey, but that I'm not taking anything away. That was a great team. That Baker team was so much fun to watch. That offensive line was just pushing people around.
That's the part, like going to that point right there. That's the part of this that really scares me. Not down the stretch in the Big 12, but in the postseason. It is Lincoln Riley's decision making when he's up big. Like I mean, hell, I play like I do on Madden. If I was the coach, hell, I'm going for the throat. Hell, I'm going for the jug. Yeah, I'm going for the jug. Finish him. I'm up 42-17. I'm not about to slow down. No. As Texas would say, all gas, no brakes. I'm going to keep it going. I'm gonna keep that train going. But yeah, no,
that's messed up.
Yeah, no, that 18 game that hunts me, because if any year was our year, it was that one for sure. That team was loaded, man.
That was a great team. That was a great team.
Yeah.
Great. So how do you, before we get out of here, I got to get your opinion. Goodness gracious, tongue tied. How do you feel about Gentry?
About Gentry Williams? Oh man, that's another big pickup. And we got a hometown kid to stay. We haven't been winning those battles lately. You look at Josh Proctor and Dax Hill. Dax Hill was never coming to OU, but at the same time, I feel like if Grinch would have been here back then, he would have had that would have been a conversation. That would have been a conversation. Grinch and Riley would have showed up at his house, had to sit down with his family, and they would have made it extremely hard for him to get out of the state. You look at Josh Proctor, and I feel like if Grinch is here at the time, Josh Proctor is coming up, there's no way he's getting out of the state. But to get Gentry and keep another hometown kid, along with the kid from Bigsby in the 23 class, you're looking at those are really huge pickups, because when OU has somebody on the national, when Oklahoma has somebody on the national scene, they're usually a high 4 or 5-star. So to keep those kids home, that's great. Obviously, we want to recruit nationally as well, but at the same time, when you got somebody in your backyard, it's a huge pickup. But that's just more depth for the, I believe for the DB room. And you're winning battles like that. You get Brownlow, you get Dindy. And you're just like, man.
Great pickup.
Yeah.
Great pickup.
Yeah, and these kids are coming in the 22 class, and you're saying now we're starting to win those 5-star battles that we've so longed for so long. Like now we're winning those. I think the biggest thing right now is just making sure that those kids get development. And I'm not trying to point fingers at the staff, which I think they're developing as best as they can, but I think it's just another level you got to get to. Another level you got to get to.
Now, do you think that that's indicative of development as a whole, or just Grinch still trying to get everybody that really formulates into his defense exactly how he would like?
I don't think it's that point because it's kind of been the word on the street for a while that Grinch kind of met with Riley about that. I'm not gonna just try to drop a bombshell on people, but that was just a word. I know a word on the street was that he met with him about that. He felt like there was a lot of free scholarships that were out there that were being given, and
Gotcha.
he wanted to get his guys in. And I think that's kind of the reason why you saw that as a quote unquote mass exodus of players. So to your point, I think that he already did that. He already cleaned house and he's brought in guys that he wanted, and he's put guys in positions that he thinks they would excel in. So I just think that it's still an evolution process that they're going to, because I know if you listen to Grinch's press conferences after the game, before the games, whatever the case may be, he's talking about effort, and people buying in and loving practice and loving all types of things. So I still think that there's still a culture issue there on that defensive side of the ball that they're trying to clean up, as far as getting not only got, because if you look at some of the cornerbacks, some of the DBs that he's bringing in, they're 3 stars, some like 4-star, but he's getting a lot of 3-star guys, but he's getting guys that fit his system and that can run that system. And I think with Grinch is saying, I'm going to get a home run guy that everybody loves, but I'm also going to go out here and get a bunch of Cornell Motleys, a bunch of Pat Fields, a bunch of Delarian Turner Yells, because those guys fit my system and can bring continuity in places that I couldn't have these other 5-star kids. You get what I'm saying? So
yeah, for
he's
sure.
winning those battles, but I just think that it's just a culture thing right now more than anything, as far as really, I know he's in his 3rd year and I'm sitting here talking about culture, but even in your 3rd year, you're still going to try to build off of what you did last year. And so he wants the defense to be elite. They've been so-so this year, sometimes elite, sometimes trash. So yeah.
It's been weird because you've been looking at one position group that's been playing well, and then another position group hasn't, and then the next week it's like things have flipped, and it's been a strange year.
Yeah.
Savage Dog comes in, says his Georgia Bulldogs are #1 and nobody else is close. Go Dogs. I can't wait for us, as long as my Tide can keep winning out, Savage, I can't wait for that SEC championship game between us and y'all. That's going to be fantastic. It'll be a great game.
I can't wait
for so much fun.
I can't wait for Florida to go out there and put up a really good game and kind of bring everybody like, oh, so people are close to you. Yeah.
The Florida game is going to be interesting for sure. It is. I'm very intrigued if Florida can pass the ball enough, because Florida is great at running.
See, that was the same thing I thought about the Alabama game. And then,
I mean, that's true. That's very true. That's very true.
Yeah.
That's very true. Man, speaking of Alabama, the one thing I'll end on, this week, right? Our oldest rival. And I'm going to tell you right now, what you saw against Mississippi State was only the preview for what's going to happen against Tennessee. Cigars will be lit, and Rocky Top will be Rocky no more. Ain't nothing hard there.
Where's that game at?
I think it's in.
It's at Bama. It's in Tuscaloosa. So no golf balls this time. No golf balls.
No. It won't matter. They won't need them.
No, I know.
Get close enough.
I talked to my aunt, and he said, "Hey man," he said, "This was last week." He said, "Who does Alabama play?" And I said, "Mississippi State." He said, "Ooh, I would not want to be them," because he's like, he was like, he called me before the game started, and he was like, "Hey." He was like, "You think those Mississippi State players are in there, like talking with tears rolling down their eyes and piss rolling and like just streaming down their pants? Like, man, I don't know about this. I don't think we should go out there." Because he's like,
"Man, that second half."
Yeah, Yeah, no, it was funny because when the game first started, I know my girlfriend, she walked into the living room. She was like, "Hey, what is this annoying sound that's on the TV?" I was like, "Oh, all these cowbells." She was like, "Oh, they must really think they're gonna have a good game." So she sat down, but she got up pretty quickly. If you catch my drift, she was like, "Yeah, this ain't nothing to watch." Yeah,
No.
yeah. I thought Mike Leach might give y'all some problems, but he's still a ways away from having that type of yeah.
As one of the best channels on YouTube says, if y'all don't listen to it, go subscribe to the Unofficial Coaches. They do videos after the Alabama games, and he breaks
Yeah.
the film down great. But as to quote him, Mr. Anderson was out there putting in his best work. A SEC leading 11 tackles for loss and 4 sacks in one game, tying one of 3 Alabama players all time to do it. I forget the third, but the second was Derek Thomas. Anytime you're in the conversation with Derek Thomas, you're doing something right. Will Anderson is absolutely, he's the Terminator for a reason. That man is unbelievable. Unbelievable. Well, man, I appreciate you coming on. I'm about to go eat some dinner. What are you what do you got going Friday? Maybe do a quick live stream.
Yeah, if you want to, we can.
Yeah, let's get it in the books for Friday. We'll get one going then.
All right, for sure. Yeah, no, I'm about to go do the same thing. But yeah, Friday, yeah, for sure. It's not much to talk about on my side. We got Kansas this week, so we got pretty much a bye week. So
always something to talk about. There's always something to learn. There's always something to learn, man. Doesn't matter who you play. As you can tell, I've been listening to the school of Nick Saban for a little bit too long. But I appreciate everybody for coming in. If you haven't already, go subscribe to the Horns Down podcast. Chris, where can they find you at?
Hey, they can find us at Twitter. You can find me at Chris with a K. That's KCHRIS with _K. You can find me there. You can find us on YouTube. You can find us on Anchor, Spotify, wherever you have your podcast set, Apple Podcasts, whatever. You can find us at the Horns Down podcast with Chris and Seth Oliveris. And yeah, we have a good time, y'all.
Hey, we got to get Seth on here. I gotta get talking to him. Savage, before we go, great. Congratulations to your dogs on flipping Michael Williams. That is a huge flip. Huge flip. What time are you thinking for Friday, man? Was 5:30? 5 o'clock sounds good?
Yeah, let's aim for 5:30. I think 5:30 would be cool.
5:30 it is. All right, man. Well, I appreciate everybody for coming in. We'll see y'all Friday, and that's it. See ya.